this is a maximum pressure campaign to really breathe down the neck of Taiwanese leadership, to cause fear and panic amongst the Taiwanese public, and really to make them think that there's no point resisting. So they would then surrender, and that would be the best situation for China.
Well, let's now have a discussion about another really important story, and that, of course, is Taiwan. Following Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, tensions between America, China and Taiwan are rising. China has launched missiles which have landed near Taiwanese islands and in Japan's economic zone. A Taiwanese representative to the US has condemned China's behaviour as irresponsible and dangerous, and as a result has jeopardised regional peace. Well, here to discuss this with me now are Valerie Tan. Valerie is an analyst at Mercator Institute for China Studies. Valerie, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Good evening.
And welcome to Alessio Patalona. Sorry, I think I've probably mangled the pronunciation, who's Professor of War and Strategy in East Asia at King's College London. Alessio, welcome. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Valerie, let's start with you. What do you make of the current situation following Nancy Pelosi's visit?
Well, I guess what we're seeing right now with the military exercises and the live firing of missiles in the body of water around Taiwan by Chinese military forces is literally China flexing its muscles, and China basically carrying out action to match all that fiery and angry rhetoric that it has been releasing in the public for the past few days. And the key message here from Beijing is we're powerful, don't mess with us. But really, this is a maximum pressure campaign to really breathe down the neck of Taiwanese leadership, to cause fear and panic amongst the Taiwanese public, and really to make them think that there's no point resisting. So they would then surrender, and that would be the best situation for China. But of course, in this situation, there's plenty of room for misfire and miscalculations.
Yes, and very dangerous mistakes. And Alessio, what's your take on these Chinese military exercises? Of course, lots of people monitoring them, very worried about them. But you're also making the point that they are often expected at this time of year anyway.
No, absolutely. I think the exercises are first and foremost part of the annual sort of summertime exercises that the Chinese regularly conduct. And in a way, what we've been looking at is both good news and bad news. Good news in the sense that what we're looking at is something that falls within what is a core mission that the PLA has had since its birth, which is sort of eventually, if it is asked to do so, to take over Taiwan. And so this is, the sort of the splash areas, the designated spaces for the exercises. They're very much similar to previous type of exercises that were conducted as a way also to signal to Taiwan certain intentions. If you think about 2002, 95, 96, there are elements of similarity there. So that is the good news, right? On the other hand, precisely because they follow on patterns that we've seen before, we can also see the differences. And that's where really the interesting stuff comes around, because these areas, the splash areas, are wider. They are extended further out. They signal really the development of capabilities of the last 20 years and that how far the Chinese have gone in that direction. So in this regards, that is the key difference. Also, the flight of the planes today, the fighters today that went through the median line, very specifically going across the median line and then going back. There's a clear, very sort of strong political signaling, more than a military, if you want, operational prepositioning here at work.
Thank you for that, Alessio. And I'll put this question to both of you. Valerie, first, we've heard from a number of commentators and a very senior American military former general who made the point that it is important that we keep an eye on what's happening on this, but they're also arguing that China, from a military point of view, is too weak to invade Taiwan successfully now. So a lot of this is about sort of keeping the psychological pressure up. But many commentators, military commentators, are just saying, look, China would not be in a sort of realistic place to mount some kind of, land offensive. What do you think about that?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not a military expert, and I'm not really China's military capabilities on my research expertise. But I can say this: that the fact that China wants to assert its strength and power is to be expected. Just like what Ayesha said, this is something that is part of China's playbook that we have been used to, and Taiwan is also used to it. But China is also careful. It would have to be careful not to overstep its show of anger. It is a politically important year for Xi Jinping. He is seeking a third term as chief of the Chinese party state. He doesn't want to come across as weak, and he doesn't want to come across as undermined, not least by the United States. But he also cannot afford to have this escalate into a major crisis, which China is not exactly in the best state or best economic shape to take on right now.
And Alicia, same question to you, that people are arguing that China's just too weak to successfully invade Taiwan now.
Let me echo what the other guest has just said, because I completely agree with her. From a military point of view, whether it is too weak or not sufficiently weak, it's only on the day that you actually deploy on the ground and things kick off that you realise that that is true or not. So I wouldn't put it that way. I don't think it's a question of weakness or not weakness, because at the end of the day, we know that this is a core mission that the PLA needs to perform. So they've been on a trajectory, and of course this is a moving target, because as they develop, also the circumstances around the region and around the Strait of Taiwan evolve as well. So it is a moving target, but it is a mission. So the question is whether we are looking at a situation in which Xi Jinping would feel that pulling the trigger is the thing to do, and I don't think we are in that space. Everything suggests that there is a certain degree of attention and being careful about how every single signal, including the more aggressive posturing for some aspects of these exercises, are deployed. So that doesn't suggest that we are looking at, as I say, the seeds of an invasion. And that's the real question that we need to be sort of focusing on.
And Valerie, just looking at the fallout from Nancy Pelosi's visit, it has obviously increased these diplomatic, geopolitical tensions. Do you think her visit was wise? Do you think that was a visit for Nancy Pelosi above all else?
I think whether she visits or not, China's historic mission, quote unquote, is to reunify Taiwan. And even before she visited, the military airspace incursions have been going on, the economic coercion have been going on, carried out by China, putting on the pressure on Taiwan. So it doesn't obviously improve the situation, but it doesn't make it any worse. Of course, the question is, can it get any worse? This is what we're seeing right now, a precursor of things to come with regard to how China will treat Taiwan. We're going to see further, more intensity, more frequency when it comes to such military exercises, when it comes to economic coercion, perhaps more targeted sanctions that will really hurt and really pile on the pressure on businesses, on individuals even, because what we're seeing unprecedented this time was that they arrested somebody in China, a Taiwanese politician, on national security violation charges. So like what Elio said earlier on, it's psychological, and it is really a long game that China is playing when it comes to Taiwan.
And final question to you, Alicia, a really interesting discussion. A point that has come up from quite a lot of my listeners is that, when we look back at what happened with Russia and Ukraine, everybody was saying, look, it's very unlikely that Russia would ever, mount a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and yet here we are. Could the invasion of Ukraine provide a sort of a hint of what might come for Taiwan?
If you intend this in terms of making the leadership in China to rethink the fact that you might need to keep the military option in the drawers, no, absolutely not. I think as we've pointed out, 2049 is the day of the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, and that in that package you want to have the sort of all the outstanding territorial disputes, of which Taiwan is the largest, if you want, being back home and sort of sorted out one way or another. So in this respect, I think the Chinese are certainly paying incredible attention to what is happening in Ukraine, but at the same time, they're doing so to learn and to understand how to better protect themselves, shield themselves from potential consequences, but also how to test, how the Russian test has failed, why it's failed, and how they can do better and get themselves better prepared.
Okay, well, listen, thank you both for a really, really interesting discussion. You've really shone an interesting light on the situation there. My huge thanks to Valerie Tan and to Professor Alessio Patalano there discussing Taiwan.